put the pranami mantra on, and then we take it from there. Oh, sorry. Okay, who would like to lead today?
I can read it, Prabhuji.
Go ahead, Prabhuji, please do.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna
Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
सभी भगत जनों की जय हो।
जय।
Thank you, Prabhuji. Okay, are there any questions from last week before I get started for this week?
Prabhu, yes, I have one question.
What?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So, Prabhu, somebody once asked me, so when we say this Srimad-Bhagavatam is eternal, so does that mean that same Srimad-Bhagavatam is recited in spiritual world and all multiple universes in material world, or meaning the pastimes are same, or is like somebody asked me and I was thinking what could be the answer?
I think the answer is all of them, all of the options that we gave. Even in this universe, in the material world, it has been recited for millions of years. There
Yes.
are cases of the four Kumaras chanting it, other people chanting it. So yeah, it's eternal for sure. And yeah, it's just that the book was compiled in this universe 5,000 years ago.
Right.
The Bhagavatam itself has been there forever. Lord Shiva is also always chanting this, I don't know how many million years ago.
Right.
Yeah, so it is eternal.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Any other questions from last week? Okay, all right, so I can then get started with this week's class. And so what we're doing is today we are going to cover chapter 24 of the in this Canto. It's called the Fish Incarnation or Matsya Avatar. And after finishing that, we'll get to 9th Canto and we'll do the first 4 chapters. Okay, so you may recall that now, Bali Maharaj has been sent to Skull Planet by Lord Vamandev. Indra has got kingdom, and that is now Parikshit Maharaj is asking Shukadeva Goswami about the fish incarnation. He said, I've heard about the fish incarnation. So what's all that about? why would the Supreme Personality of God, um, our Lord, will take the abominable form of a fish? I mean, that's not exactly, a wonderful creature. So Shukdev Goswami said, actually, not just once, but twice, the Lord appeared as a fish. He said once at the end of the previous Kalpa, which is the day of Brahma, Brahma was feeling sleepy, and he wanted to lie down, and I guess he was yawning also. But as he was doing this, the Vedas were emanating from his mouth. At that time, a great demon by the name of Hagrid stole that Vedic knowledge, and therefore the Lord had to appear as a fish at the beginning of the previous, at the beginning of the first Manu, Swayambhu Manu, at the beginning of his reign, I guess, he appeared and he saved the Vedas by killing this demon. I'll be honest with you, I don't know why he had to appear as a fish for that, but that's what it said. Does anybody know by any chance what's the relationship with the form of a fish and Hagrid? Because I don't, and I didn't have a chance to do some research. Okay, all right. Yeah, I just thought I'll ask. Okay, so excuse me. Then he said, second time the Lord appeared as a fish was during the reign of the Chakshush Manu, who is the sixth Manu in the series. And at that time there was a king by the name of Satyavrat. He was a very pious ruler, very great devotee, and it was to actually save him that the Lord appeared as a fish again. And we will see later on that that King Satyavrat became actually the son of sun god, who's known as Vivaswan, and his name was Shraddhadev. The Shraddhadev became the seventh Manu, which is the current Manu. Can anybody help me with the name of this Manu, current Manu?
Chakshu?
Huh?
Chakshush. Something like that.
Vivaswat.
Correct.
Vyavasthan.
Correct. Son of Vivaswan is Vyavaswan.
Prabhu, voice is very low.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it is a problem for me or is it for everyone?
Okay,
let me just see if there's something. Okay, tell me how this now. Otherwise, I go and get my headphones. That will make it better. Is it any better?
No, same, Prabhuji.
No, same Prabhu.
Just give me one.
Chapter 34.
34 पढ़े आगतुं तपनो और उसके वैसे श्लोकां वर्तने ना कितना पढ़ लिया सो
सारा चैप्टर कवर कर देना हूँ 9th कैंटो पे चल जाना हूँ आज
How's this?
much better probably
Okay.
Yeah, better.
So it's clear or just better?
very clear
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. I appreciate you letting me know. Okay, so, excuse me. As I said, Chakshush Manvantara was the previous Manvantara, that was sixth one. And current Manvantara is seventh Manvantara. It's called Vaivasvat Manvantara. And Vaivasvat is the name of it's not the name. It's by association the name of current Manu. Son of Vivaswan is known as Vaivasvat. It's just like son of Vasudeva is known as, anybody?
Vasudev.
Vasudeva. Exactly. So same thing. Otherwise, his real name was Shraddhadev. the Vaivasat Manu's real name was Shraddhadev. Anyway, so once upon a time, King Satyavata, this is in the previous Manvantara now, was engaged in the austerity of subsisting only on water. So only thing he was having was water. And his purpose was to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I mean, as you know, there is no use of an austerity that is not done to please the Lord. So he was doing that. So one day, while performing his austerity on the bank of the river, I should say, the name of the river was Kritamala. And he was offering oblations of water, like, take it from the river and then offer it back to the river and to sun and to the Lord. And when he did that this time, he noticed there was a small fish in his palm. Now, what will you do if you put your water, took a palm full of water from the river and thought there's fish in it? What will be your first reaction?
Command.
I'm sorry?
Try to catch it.
Catch it and he put the bundle.
Try to catch it? But seriously, would that be your first reaction?
Throw it back to the
He
water.
will back
Let
in
it
the
go.
water.
Yeah, you'll immediately stop it.
Yeah.
There is such a shock, you say, leave it. So that's what he did.
He put the commander.
No kamandal. He didn't have any kamandal. He's a king. Kings don't have kamandal.
Oh, okay.
He had his palm full and he just dropped it back in the river. Very quickly, just, reflex action almost, he did that. But something really interesting happened. When he threw the fish back in the water, that small fish, in a very pitiable, appealing voice, asked the king for protection, asking the king to put him, like the fish, in a safe place. And she said, "Oh king, why are you throwing me in the water of the river where any aquatic can kill me? I'm afraid of them. Please save me." So now, obviously at that time, the king didn't know that this small fish actually is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he was thinking he's dealing with a small fish. So as a king, he said, it is my duty to give shelter to all the subjects in my kingdom. And fish is one of the subjects. So he immediately picked it up and brought the fish to his own residence. And I should say put it in the jug and then brought the jug to his residence and put it there. And then he went about his business. But he had hardly gone maybe 10 feet that the fish expanded its body in such a way that it could no longer fit in the jug.
Yeah.
So again, he said, "Hey, I can't fit." So the king took the fish and put it in a big tray, very big tray. And the fish said very quickly again, "Oh, king, please find me a better reservoir of water where I can live comfortably." So the king said, "Oh my God, okay." So then the king picked it up and had somebody put it in a well, in a large well. But again, he had hardly turned around to go away. Within a moment, the fish developed even a larger body. And now it could not fit in the well. And the fish said again, "Oh, king, this reservoir of water is not fit for my happy residence. Please give me a bigger reservoir of water, because I've taken shelter of you." So the king said, "Oh my God, what do I do now?" So he took the fish out of the well and had it thrown in a lake. Very quickly, the lake was also not suitable because the fish size grew to a gigantic form, exceeding even the lake. And the fish said, "Oh king, I'm a large aquatic. This lake is too small for me. Kindly find me a bigger lake." So when the king heard that, he took the fish to the largest lake in his kingdom. But guess what happened? The fish grew again. And now the largest lake in his kingdom was not sufficient to fit this fish. So same appeal came, and this time the king took the fish and had him put in the ocean. I'm thinking, look, ocean is really big, man, that should be fine. But the fish said, oh king, there are very powerful, dangerous sharks in this ocean. They will eat me. Therefore, don't throw me in this place. And now King Seth was thinking, what do I do now? He's totally bewildered. He says, how is it possible that in moments a very small fish grows bigger in size than the ocean itself? So then he asks, folding his hands like this, he says, who are you, sir? You are bewildering me completely. In just one day, you have expanded yourself into hundreds of miles. You have become larger than the river and even the ocean. I've never seen or heard of any such aquatic. So then the king said, therefore, you must be the Supreme Personality of God, Lord Narayan. It must be that you've taken this form simply to show me your mercy.
Thank you.
And then the Lord said, may I please offer you my obeisances? And he said, kindly describe the purpose of your incarnation as a fish. So the Lord was very pleased with the king's attitude and humility and reverence and devotion and all that. So then he spoke and he said, my dear king, on the 7th day from today, there will be inundation of water or water of inundation, I should say, water of inundation. And all the three words, bhu, bhuva, swa, they will merge in that water. Nothing will be left, it will be totally dark. But don't worry, at that time, a large boat that will be sent by me will appear before you. When you see that boat, collect all types of herbs and seeds and load them on that great boat. The 7 rishis will show up. They're the Sapt rishis of the time. And you let them board that boat as well. And other living entities also let them board. When all of them are on the boat, you also get aboard that boat and travel with all your companions on that boat in the ocean of inundation. And because it will be totally dark everywhere, the only illumination you will have is the effulgence of the 7 rishis that would be traveling with you. And you should attach this boat by means of the great serpent Vasuki to the fish that I will appear as fish then, to my horns. And we shall travel until the whole night of Brahma is over. So who's going to tell me how many years, Earth years, one night of Brahma?
100.
Tell me the years, Earth years.
4.3 million years.
I'm sorry?
4.3 million years.
4.32.
Actually, multiply by 1,000.
Oh, 4.3 billion years.
4.3 billion years. That's how long Brahma's night is. So imagine being on a boat in complete darkness when the ocean waves are going crazy because these are waters of inundation. And sitting there for 4.3 billion years. Anyway, so after the Lord told him that, the Lord disappeared. And the king offered his obeisances and just started meditating upon the Lord. Sure enough, on the 7th day, the annihilation took place and everything was inundated with water. And then the king saw a boat coming near him. So as instructed by the Lord, he collected the herbs and the creepers and accompanied by all these rishis and the other saintly persons and the rishis, he boarded that boat. And as the Lord had instructed, he tied the boat with Vasuki to the horn of this fish and began to offer his prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord heard those prayers and he explained the whole philosophy to him. He told him, what is absolute truth, who's absolute truth, what is Sankhya Yoga, devotional service, what is the what are the contents of the Puranas and the Samhitas and all those kind of things. Basically, a nice 4.3 billion year long lecture. How would you like to sit that long for in a lecture? I mean, I think hour and a half is torture enough, right? Imagine having to sit there 4.3 billion years to listen to a fish. So it's a good thing that he knew who this is. Anyway, so that's what happened. And actually, Srimad-Bhagavatam said that anyone who hears the transcendental narration of the fish incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is delivered from the reactions of sinful life. So you're all being delivered now by the reactions of your sinful life, if you had any. I doubt you did, but if you had. And it says, very consoling to me, is anyone who narrates this description of the Mats or fish incarnation and King Satyavrata will have all his ambitions fulfilled and will undoubtedly return home back to Godhead. So see you there, folks.
Enjoy.
Yeah, Hari Bol. Anyway, so as I was saying before, then after this Leela finished, King Satyavrata took his birth. His next birth was as the son of Vivaswan, which is Vaivasvat Manu. And then we carry on from there. Okay, so that's the end of Canto 8, Chapter 24. Any questions or comments before I move to Canto 9?
So, Prabhu, I just checked like this fish. Why Lord take fish incarnations for Hayagriva is because that time it was completely covered with water. So fish incarnation was appropriate.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Because it was the night of Brahma. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. Absolutely right. Thank you. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was the night. Just like this one, there was the night. Thank you.
Okay, I can understand.
Any other comments or questions?
So, Prabhu, question: who becomes? So, when Brahma's day comes, the next Manu, who becomes then the same king?
No. So when the Brahma's day starts, you start everything all over again.
Okay.
So then you have the first Manu again,
Yeah.
second Manu, third Manu, and so on and so forth. The 14 Manus.
Yeah.
And that is the Brahma's day. Then you have the whole night. The next day again, the cycle starts. Okay. All right. So let's move on to 9th canto.
Prabhuji, can I ask something?
Sure. Go ahead.
Prabhuji, whenever I hear this pastime, I always think about this. Is this just for the pastime's sake that the king does not understand in the first or the second expansion only that this is not natural and it's not it's some maybe it's a personality of Godhead or it is some special personality? It is just for the pastime purpose, or because it is like so if from a common man's perspective, it's like doing all your efforts first, like shifting the fish to the different water reservoirs before surrendering to the Lord that, okay, it's enough. After this, I cannot do it. So you please reveal your identity to me. So what is this? Is this just for the pastime sake or what?
Well, so I mean, again, I don't know the inside information, but what makes sense to me is that the king is, in those days anyway, was very caring of all his subjects. So at least initially, he was thinking, okay, fine. I mean, it's possible, but I'm sure by the time it moved from the well to the lake, he started to wonder, what is this? But he kept doing it, and until he got to the ocean, he said, okay, no other way, no other possibility except this has to be the Supreme Personality of God. So yeah, it took a few tries, I guess. And, again, the same thing. If it's in my power, let me do it. When you become helpless, you say, wait a minute, I have to ask a question now. So
is it like doing all the endeavors within your reach before you surrender?
that's the normal human behavior. It's not that you have to, but that's the normal human behavior. Let me try it. I mean, let me see if I can help this person or personality or whatever. You're not thinking that fish will be, Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when you see this miraculous growth, you say, wait a minute, it cannot be an ordinary fish. So let me ask.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions or
Prabhu,
comments? Yeah.
Prabhu, I have a question. Does similar incarnations will happen like every when the night starts of Brahma?
I can't say all of them, but some incarnations do happen again and again. And as we just heard, some incarnations happen twice during the night of during the time of Brahma, basically one kalpa, which is 1 day plus 1 night. So same thing we heard about Lord Nrsimhadev, he appeared twice, right? So some are more than once, some are probably only once.
Okay.
Right?
When the night starts, actually no one will be there in this universe, right?
No, that's not true. So when the night starts, only the lower planets are inundated with water. So the Brahmalok, which is Lord Brahma's, Janlok, and Maharlok, they are not destroyed. They remain above the water. Everything underneath is destroyed. So actually, there's a lot of rishis who actually move up from Janlok to Maharlok, so they'll be saved. So that also happens. Just not the entire universe. I think 11 planets of the 14 are destroyed.
Okay. The way this pastime happened, is it not in the lower planets like?
Yes, it's a pretty bhulo. That's what the Lord said. It's going to get destroyed. So I'm going to bring the boat and save you and some of the rishis and save some herbs and creepers. So that is that when the least starts, you got a beginning.
Okay.
Right?
So, okay, we are not sure, like after the end of every day, the same incarnation will happen or not, that we are not sure, is it?
No, I don't know. So maybe it does. I know some do for sure. I don't know if I can say that for each and every one of them. I don't know that.
Okay. Sure. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Anybody else? I'm just going to mute everyone. Okay, all right. So now in the 9th canto, the first 3 chapters are basically describing the Sun Dynasty. And they're very small chapters, talking about some stories that are not exactly related to each other, except that they're happening with people in the same dynasty, which is the Sun Dynasty. So it may sound like unrelated events, and as a matter of fact, I considered skipping them and going to the main story, which is King Ambarish. But then I thought that for the sake of completion, I should just cover all of them. So that's what's happening right now. Okay, so the first chapter, it talks about how a prince named Sudyumna became a woman, and also talks about how the dynasty of Vaivasvat Manu, which is a Sun Dynasty, amalgamated with the Moon Dynasty. So we'll talk about that also. And how it starts is that King Parikshit was curious about, the dynasty of Vaivasvat Manu. And so Sukadeva Goswami started describing the whole dynasty. And in that he described, which had done before also, how the from the navel of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, a lotus flower sprouted, and Brahma was sitting on the lotus flower. From Brahma's mind, Marichi appeared, and Marichi had a son by the name of Kashyap Muni. So we have discussed Kashyap Muni quite a bit in the past. There were two very famous wives of Kashyap Muni. Anybody remembers?
Aditi and Aditi.
Aditi and Aditi.
Yes, exactly right. Thank you. Very good. So for Kashyap Muni and Aditi, the demigods were born, one of which was Vivaswan, the sun god. Sun god Vivaswan got married to a couple of women, and one of whose name was Sangya. And with her, he had a son called Shraddhadev, who's the Vaivasvat Manu as we know him. Now, so once Vaivasvat Muni became the Manu, he wanted to have children. Later on, he had 10 children, including very famous kings like Ikshvaku, who was a predecessor of Lord Ram. Also others, we'll talk about Niga and Nabhag and all that. We'll talk about them later. But when he was sonless, he was very concerned. So he performed a yajna ceremony. And he took the help of Vasishtha Muni. This is how old Vasishtha Muni is, by the way. Vasishtha Muni was Kulguru of Lord Ram. And now we are talking about, the father of Maharaj Ikshvaku, Vaivasvat Muni. So very, very old. Anyway, so he took the help from Vasishtha Muni and said, please do this fire sacrifice so I may have a son. But interestingly, his wife wanted a daughter. So Vasishtha Muni said, I'm going to listen to the wife. And as a result of the fire sacrifice, the child that was born was a daughter. Her name was Ila. But Manu was not very happy. He was not satisfied that I have a daughter. I need sons because I'm a king. I need sons to carry on my dynasty. So he went back to Vasishtha Muni and said, Vasishtha Muni, what have you done? I need a son. So Vasishtha Muni said, fine. If that's your desire, I'm going to transform this daughter of yours, Ila, into a boy. And he turned Ila into a boy named Sudyumna. Very handsome young man named Sudyumna. So now Sudyumna is a, not transgender, he's a real boy. And so once Sudyumna, who's a prince, went on some tour, just took some ministers with him and went touring different places. And he reached a forest that is known as Sukumar. It's in the, at the bottom of Mount Sumeru, which is a very, very tall mountain. But as soon as they entered this forest, every one of them, and there were many people, was turned into a woman, transformed into a woman. And basically what happened was that there was a curse by Lord Shiva that any man entering this forest will turn into a woman. And why did he curse? So basically what happened was that once upon a time, Lord Shiva was sitting and Mother Parvati was sitting on his lap without any clothes on. And some sages, not realizing this, they walked in and they saw Mother Parvati sitting naked. So they tried to close their eyes, but Mother Parvati was very embarrassed. So Lord Shiva cursed the forest, not them, forest, that anyone from now on that enters this forest will turn into a woman, and then my wife doesn't have to be embarrassed. So that was the curse because of which Sudyumna and all the ministers accompanying him turned into women. So they were actually living there because Sudyumna was too embarrassed to come back to the kingdom. And there he met Buddha, Buddha, I should say, not Buddha, Buddha, who is the son of Moon. So she married. Now, because remember, Sudyumna has become woman. So she married Buddha, who is the son of Moon. And with him, she had a son by the name of Pururava. And I'm telling these names because there's long stories, much more detail about these personalities. So just so you can remember the name Pururava. Anyway, when Vasishtha Maharaj found out that this has happened, so he went to Lord Shiva, he offered his prayers and said, please turn Suddhimna back into a boy, because Vaivasvat Manu does not have any sons, and we need a son to carry the dynasty on. So Lord Shiva said, well, I cannot take the curse completely, but here's a benediction. From now on, Suddhimna would live 1 month as a woman and 1 month as a man. Now, is there anybody on this call who would like to have a life like that? 1 month I'm a woman, 1 month I'm a man. I mean, make it one way or the other, sir, this way or that way. Anyway, so what Suddhimna was now stuck with that problem. Anyway, he came back and now he was given the kingdom to rule, and he had 3 sons. And thereafter, he basically took Vanprastha, which is renunciation, with his wife, and gave the kingdom to his son Pururava. And that's the end of the first chapter. Now in the second chapter, it says that after Suddhimna took Vanprastha and departed for the forest, Vaivasvat Manu was not satisfied with having his grandson being the king. So he still wanted to have sons. So he directly worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan, and he got benedicted to have 10 sons. And I was saying, 3 of the most famous sons are Ikshvaku, Nabha, Nrigad. We'll talk about them later on. Later cantos, I should say. Anyway, he also had a son by the name of Prasadra. His duty was, these are very strange stories. Anyway, he was given the duty of protecting the cows at night. So he would take a sword in his hand and he'd wander around the forest, ensuring no animals are coming to attack the cows. But once, in the darkness of night, a tiger managed to sneak in. He seized a cow and he started running. When Prasadra realized this, he took his sword and started following the tiger. And the tiger was running very fast and Prasadra was running very fast. Finally, he caught up to them and with his sword cut the head. But then he realized that he could not distinguish between the tiger and the cow. And by mistake, he actually killed the cow that he was trying to protect. So because he did that, he killed a cow, his spiritual master was very upset and said, go take a birth in a Shudra family. But Prasadra was very powerful mystic yogi and a very advanced devotee. So by his bhakti yoga, he worshipped the Lord and voluntarily entered, there was a blazing fire, he entered in that and gave up his body and went back home, back to Godhead without having to take birth as a Shudra. And then this description of more descendants of Manu, and that's the end of second chapter. Now, any questions before I move to the third chapter? It's just very short stories. Okay, all right, so I'll keep going. So one day, there was another son of Manu. His name was Sharyati. So Sharyati and his daughters, whose name was Sukanya, they went to the ashram of a very famous sage by the name of Chavan Muni. So those of you who are from India have probably heard the name Chavan Prash, which is a very healthy paste that you're supposed to eat 1 spoon every morning or whatever. Anyway, so Chavan Muni was there, and the king and his daughter went to visit with her friends. This was a very young girl at that time, to the forest to meet Chavan Muni. In the forest, Sukanya, the daughter, saw 2 glowing substances within a hole of earthworms. And in her childish curiosity, she pierced those 2 glowing substances. But as soon as she did that, blood began to ooze from that hole. And when that happened, something strange happened. King Shariati, all his soldiers and other companions, they started suffering from constipation and were unable to pass urine. And when the king realized that, he said, this is not normal. Something has happened. So what has happened? Why did my circumstances change so suddenly? And then he was told that, look, Sukanya, your daughter, pierced the two things. She didn't know what it was that caused the blood, but they happened to be the eyes of Chevan Rishi or Chevan Muni, who was meditating for a very long time. So basically anthills were formed and she couldn't see. So his eyes are bleeding. This is a result of that you're suffering now. So of course, everybody offered their prayers to Chevan Muni just to satisfy him. And to further satisfy him, King Shariati offers daughter Sukanya to Chevan Muni in marriage, knowing full well that Chevan Muni is a very, 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 very old man. So the marriage took place, and Sukanya stayed with Chevan Muni, the old man, and the king left for his kingdom. Sometime later, the Ashwini Kumaras, whom you know as the demigods doctors, they were visiting Chevan Muni. And Chevan Muni said to them, can you please bring me back my youth? And they looked at him and they said, why do we do that? And Chevan Muni said, you know what? I'll offer you a part of Somras and a share of Somras in all the other 5 sacrifices in future where Somras is generated. So Somras is something amazing. It's like nectar, very, very tasty also. So in the greed of that, Ashwini Kumars agreed to turn Chevan Muni into a young man. So they took him to a particular lake and all of them dived into it. They had their bath. When they came out, Chevan Muni had regained his full youth. Ashwini Kumars were already very young. So now there were 3 young men that came out of the lake. And when Sukanya saw them, she said, I know my husband just went in, but he was a very old man. So now there are 3 young men, and what do I do? They are all very young and handsome, but I want only my husband. How do I find out? So she basically surrendered to the Ashwini Kumaras and said, please, my lords, help me. And I don't want to touch anybody except my husband. So please help me. So that kind of made them very happy that, she's such a chaste girl. And they identified who her real husband was. And they got together. And then they were living together as young, handsome couple. Few years later, King Shariati came back to Chevan Muni's ashram because he wanted to perform another fire sacrifice. When he got to the ashram of Chevan Muni, he saw his daughter Sukanya sitting with a very handsome young man. And he completely misunderstood the situation. He thought she's having an affair with a young man because her husband is old. So he called her unchaste and he accused her of literally degrading her consciousness, despite the fact that she has been born in such a respectable Kshatriya family. Her father is a king. And he said, how can you shamelessly maintain a paramour when you're married to such an exalted personality as Chevan Muni? So Sukanya smiled. She told him of the whole incident. And Chevan Muni said, yes, it's right. I am Chevan Muni, which made king very, very happy. So then Chevan Muni, at the request of the king, performed the Som Yagya, and which produced a lot of Somras, and he gave a share of Somras to Ashwini Kumaras as promised. But Indra did not like that. The king of heaven, Indra, didn't like that. He became very angry. And he said, how dare this Chevan Muni give a share of Somras, which is the exclusive property of the demigods, to these 2 doctors? And he said, for his daring to do so, I'm going to kill Chavan Muni. And he picked up his thunderbolt to hit Chavan Muni. But Chavan Muni was a very powerful sage. So with his powers, he paralyzed in this arm that was holding the thunderbolt. And basically giving Indra a lesson. And then he had Indra promise that from now on, he will not stop Ashwini Kumaras from getting a share of the Somras wherever the appropriate fire sacrifice was made. Later on, Sharati had a grandson whose name was Revat. Now, the name Revat should sound familiar. Anybody would like to help me about who Revat was and why is he famous? Revat. So
You are looking for his daughter's marriage.
Yes. So Revati was his granddaughter actually.
Yeah. Okay.
So he was looking for a husband for her. So he wanted to see Lord Brahma. But Brahma was busy, so he said, just wait a couple of minutes, I'll be with you. So he waited a couple of minutes. So how many earth years had passed by on earth? A couple of minutes of Brahma is like millions of years. So by the time, King Revat came back, nothing that he recognized was there. Millions of years had passed. So he asked Lord Brahma, and he said, don't worry, you go to Dwarka. There's only one person suitable for your granddaughter's hand. That's Lord Balaram. So the granddaughter's name was Revati on her grandfather's name, Revat. So that's why King Revat is famous. Okay. Now, so once that happened, and this first time, by the way, is discussed in great detail in 10th Canto. We'll talk about that later. Now that brings us to chapter 4. So again, I'm going to pause, see if there are any questions before I get to chapter 4. Okay, all right. So, one of the other sons of...
Yes, Prabhuji.
I'm sorry? One of the other sons of Munu, as I mentioned, was Nabha. Nabha lived in a Gurukul for many, many years. And in his absence, his brothers divided their father's property among themselves without leaving a share for Nabha. So when Nabha returned home from Gurukul, his brothers told him that their father was his share. They had taken everything else. So when Nabha went back to his father, he said, this is what I've been told by my brothers. And his father said, no, they're trying to cheat you. And he said that no use fighting them. Just go to this fire sacrifice arena where the fire sacrifice is happening. He gave him 2 mantras. He said, chant those 2 mantras there. And the sages who are performing the sacrifice will give you all the money that they collect from that sacrifice. So he went, and Angira Rishi and other rishis were there. He chanted those mantras. So at the end of the fire sacrifice, Angira Muni and other great saintly people, they gave all the money they had collected in the sacrifice. So Nabha was very happy. He was returning.
Okay.
Sorry? Okay, so he was returning, but the Lord Shiva decided to test him. He came in the dress of a, or rather looking like a very dark complexioned person. And he said, the wealth you're carrying is mine, it's not yours. And Nabha said, no, sir, I have received this from the sages who performed the fire sacrifice. And the other person said, no, it was for me. So they had an argument, and the other man suggested that let's go to your father. We'll accept whatever he says. So Nabha didn't have an issue with that. So both of these people went to the father of Nabha, who was Bhavasat Manu, by the way. And the father said whatever the great sages sacrificed in that arena, they had offered to Lord Shiva. Therefore, everything in that sacrificial arena belongs to Lord Shiva. Therefore, this man who is Lord Shiva is right. And therefore, need to give back everything received to Lord Shiva. When Nabha heard that, he immediately offered his obeisances to Lord Shiva. And he said, I apologize, I did not know. Here's everything. It all belongs to you. Please take it. And with great respect, he said, I bow down my head to you and I beg for your mercy. I made a mistake. I'm very, very sorry. But Lord Shiva was very satisfied. He was not interested in money anyway. So he said, I'm very satisfied with your behavior. And here, take all the riches back to you and you keep it, enjoy it. And the Lord disappeared. Now, Nabha had a very famous son whose name was Ambarish, the most powerful and celebrated devotee. Maharaj Ambarish was the emperor of the entire world, but he was akinchan in that he did not consider any of it to be his property. He knew it was temporary and it belonged to Krishna. And he also knew that this kind of material opulence is the cause of downfall of people in general. And therefore, he was totally unattached. Imagine the emperor of the world being unattached to his power, his throne, his property, anything else. And he's famous for engaging all his senses and his mind in the service of the Lord. And that process of engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord is known as bhakti. Some of you may recall a very famous verse from Nectar of Devotion, which says, Sarvopadhi vinirmuktam partatpena nirmalam rishike nishike sevanam bhakti uchite, which is engagement of all our senses in the service of the master of senses, Lord Krishna, is the definition of bhakti. And then the same book, Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami says, Anasaktasya Vishyan Yatharaham Upijinjita Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagya Muchita. He defines the term called Yukta Vairag, which is called feasible renunciation, where you're using everything without becoming attached to it, but you're using it only for the service of Krishna, and you are interacting with it only to the degree necessary. And that is what King Ambarish was doing. Even though, no, I should say even though, because he was immensely opulent, he performed devotional service also with great opulence. And because he considered everything to be Lord's property, he developed no attachment to the property or even to his wife, children, or kingdom. He constantly engaged all his 10 senses and mind in the service of the Lord. He never even asked for liberation. He just wanted to serve the Lord. So there are some very famous verses in this chapter, and I want to share them with you because I can just explain it, but I really want you to see them, those verses, and if it is possible, maybe even memorize them later on. So I'm going to share the screen and put them up. And there you go. Would somebody like to read these 3 verses? No, read like loud. Somebody read it loud so everybody can join you. And if you're hesitant, I can read it loud. Okay. Savay Manaha Krishna Padar Vindayor, Vachansi Vaikuntha Gunanu Anave. Karo Harere Mandir Bajinadishu, Shrutim Chakar Achyut Shat Kathoday. Mukunda Lingalaya Darshane Darshau, Tad Bhatta Gat Sparshe Anga Sangamam, Ghanam Chatat Pad Sarod Saurabhe, Shimat Tulasya Rasadam Tad Arpite. Padav Hare Kshetra Padanus Arpane, Shiro Rishi Kes Padabhi Vandane. Kamam Cha Dasya Natu Kamya Yathota Mashloka Janashraya Harati. Okay, somebody would like to read the translation?
Yes, Prabhuji, I can read.
Go ahead, please go ahead.
Maharaj Ambarish always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna, his words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, and his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temple, and Krishna's places like Mathura and Vrindavan. He engaged his sense of touch in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engaged his sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of tulasi offered to the Lord, and he engaged his tongue in tasting the Lord's prasada. He engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord, his head in bowing down before the Lord, and all his desires in serving the Lord, 24 hours a day. Indeed, Maharaj Ambarish never desired anything for his own senses, for his own sense gratification. He engaged all his senses in devotional service in various engagements related to the Lord. This is the way to increase attachment for the Lord and be completely free from all material desires.
Thank you, Prabhu. Nicely read. So the reason I wanted to put this up so we can do this twice, because otherwise it goes too much. So first of all, understand these three verses describing the 10 senses and the mind that are engaged by King Ambarish in the service of the Lord. So he says, mind is engaged in meditation. He's doing that. Meditation of what? The lotus feet of the Lord. His Vani, the words, in describing the glories of the Lord. His hands in cleansing the temple. And his ears hearing the words either spoken by Krishna or by the devotees of Krishna about Krishna. His eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temple, and Krishna's dham, like Mathura, Vrindavan, etc. His sense of touch, in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. Sense of smell, in smelling the fragrance of tulasi offered to the Lord. And his tongue in tasting the prasadam. His legs in walking to the holy places, the dhams, or the temple of the Lord. His head in bowing down before the Lord. And his desires, all his desires in serving the Lord 24/7. Not hour and a half a day. I finished my 16 now, so I'm done for all the nonsense. Indeed, Maharaj Ambarish did not ever desire anything for his own self gratification. Why? Because he had already used all his desires for the service of Krishna. All his senses were engaged in devotional service, in different kinds of engagements. And the verse finishes by saying, that's the way to attach, so to increase your attachment to the Lord and become free from material desires. The more we get attached to the Supreme Lord, the more we become detached or unattached from material things. So this is a very, very important verse. And I'm going to pause to see if there's any question. But it says right here in black and white, we need to engage all our 10 senses in the service of the Lord, our desires to serve the Lord, our mind in meditating for the Lord, on the Lord, and it needs to be done 24/7. No desire other than serving the Lord. Okay? Now, I'm going to put some other verses also. This is 64, 65, and 68. Okay, because you guys are being shy, I'll read this. unless somebody wants to.
I can read too.
Okay, go ahead. So you know what? I'm going to wait for a second because I think it's better if I give the context first. So I'm going to stop sharing because that will confuse you. And let me come to this point first before I do that. So essentially now what's happening is that, excuse me, let me just collect my thoughts here for a second. So what has happened is that we are describing the activities of Ambarish Maharaj and how he has engaged his 10 senses and mind and his desires, everything to Lord Krishna. And on top of that, Maharaj Ambarish always offered the results of his royal activities. But remember, he's still a king. He has royal activities. So he's offering the results of all his royal activities to Lord Krishna also, who is the real enjoyer. And he also performed many fire sacrifices to satisfy the Lord. So the Lord was so pleased with the unalloyed devotion of King Ambarish that he actually ordered his Sudarshan Chakra to be wherever King Ambarish is. Now, Sudarshan Chakra can travel at the speed of mind. So it doesn't take any time to get somewhere. Lord says, no, it's too slow. You hover around wherever my devotee Ambarish is and you protect him from any kind of danger. That's how much the Lord loved King Ambarish. Anyway, so once King Ambarish was, or rather he observed the vow of Ekadashi for 1 year. So now, observing the vow of Ekadashi for 1 year, and I was kind of saying, how can somebody be hungry for 1 year? So it's not that. It's just that for 1 year on a regular basis, King Ambarish observed Ekadashi, whenever they occurred every 15 days, and Dwadashi and all that. But once in that year, he observed a fast for 3 nights. And then 4th day, after bathing in Yamuna, no, not yet. So he offers worship to the Lord. And does anybody know where this place was, where King Ambarish was doing this? Any ideas? It's a very famous place. I'll give you a hint.
Hastinapur?
No.
No, I'll give you a hint. It's in Vrindavan, or the 12 forests of Vrindavan. One of the 12 forests of Vrindavan.
Madhuvan.
Yes, very good. Madhuvan. So that's also the place where Dhruv Maharaj did his meditation.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he was there doing this. And so on Dwadashi, so after he finished worshipping, he was about to break his fast. Just at that time, Durvasa Muni showed up. Well, he's a guest, so king stopped what he was doing, very respectfully. He received Durvasa Muni, offered him a seat, and invited him to honor prasadam. Durvasa Muni accepted the invitation and said, I'll just go to Yamuna river, I'll take my bath, I'll come back then, all right. King Ambarish said, that's fine. But Durvasa Muni went there, got into Samadhi, and didn't come back for a long time. And the time window for breaking the fast was passing. So King Ambarish consulted the Brahmins and the ministers who were with him. What do I do now? What do I do? So they advised that, look, you're doing nirujal, which is no water during your fast. So simply by drinking the water, you'll break your fast. But drinking water doesn't really break the fast, so you'll break it, but still at the same time not break it. So therefore it's okay. So he took a few drops of water just to observe the formality of breaking the fast. But Durvasa Muni is a mystic yogi, right? So immediately he could understand what had happened. And he became very angry. He was not understanding at all. No sympathy, no empathy, nothing. He got very angry. And he came back to where Ambarish Maharaj was and started chastising. King Ambarish didn't say a word. He just stood there with his hands folded like this. And Durvasa was going on and on and on. But even after some time, he was not satisfied. And he took his bunch of his hair, he plucked them and threw them on the ground, which produced a demon, a huge demon appearing like Srimad-Bhagavatam says, fire of death. He had a trident in his hand and he started running towards King Ambarish. And as he was running towards him, earth was actually trembling because of his weight. And he came very close to Ambarish Maharaj, but Ambarish Maharaj didn't move. He stood there, his hands folded, not feeling at all disturbed. But this was too much for Sudarshan Chakra, who was just hovering over. He immediately burned the fiery demon to ashes. And then he said, Durvasa Muni, I'm coming after you. When Durvasa Muni realized that, he ran for his life. He turned around and ran for his life. And Durvasa Muni is running in every direction. He's going up and down, east and west, north and south, all the different corners. He's going to the sky, earth, and caves, and oceans, and different planets. Wherever he could think of, he was running. But it didn't matter how fast he ran. He continued to feel the fire of the disc, the Sudarshan Chakra, and Sudarshan Chakra itself. Unbearable fire touching Durvasa Muni's back all the time. So finally he ran to Brahmaloka. And Lord Brahma said, I'm just a servant of God. I cannot do anything against the chakra. So he said, okay, what do I do? He said, go to Lord Shiva. So he ran to Lord Shiva, who basically said the same thing. I'm a servant of the Lord. I can't do anything. He went to other higher planets. Nowhere was he protected from the wrath of Sudarshan Chakra. Well, then he said, where there's no other place to go now except Lord Vishnu. So he ran to where Lord Vishnu was, the spiritual world. And he surrendered and he begged for protection. He said, my dear Lord, you have said anybody who asks for your protection, you protect him. So my Lord, I surrender to you. Please protect me. But the Lord said, and that's the verse that I was at, that I'm going to share now. And then one of you can read this. Okay, but Krishna Prabhu, you are going to read?
Yes, Prabhu.
Go ahead.
Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Aham Bhakta Paradino Hi Asvatantra Iva Dvija Sadhu Bihir Grasta Hridayo Bhakti Bhaktair Bhakta Jana Priya.
Yeah, so basically the Lord is speaking now to Durvasa Muni. And he says, you're asking me for surrender, but I am not independent. My dear Brahman, I'm not independent. Actually, I'm a slave. Paradhin means slave. In the jurisdiction of the king, I'm a slave. My bhakta, my devotee, is my master. And my devotees have basically captured me in their heart like a bird in a cage. Therefore, I have no freedom to do anything against their wishes. They are very dear to me, but a devotee of a devotee is even more dear to me. So therefore, I'm so sorry. I do not have the freedom to protect you. because you have offended my devotee. So then he added, so Brother Kashapu or somebody else, if you want to read the next verse.
ये दारागार पुत्राप्त प्राणान् वित्तम् इमं परम हित्वा मां शरणं याताः कथं तांस त्यक्तुम् उत्सहे.
Thank you. Somebody wants to read the translation?
Since I
Yeah.
read Prabhuji, since pure devotees give up their homes, wives, children, relatives, riches, and even their lives simply to serve me without any desire for material improvement in this life or in the next, how can I give up such a devotees at any time?
Right. So basically, the Lord is giving the reason now. He's saying any devotee who's given up everything, Manas de je kichu mora, Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings. A devotee has given up his home, his wives, his children, his relatives, his money, property, and even their life just to serve me. And they want nothing material in return from me, either in this life or the next life. How can I give up such a devotee at any time? I have no enthusiasm to go against the wishes of that devotee. And he added, he said, just like a chaste woman brings her gentle husband under her control by service. Husbands are under the control of wives who serve them very nicely. He said, just like that, the pure devotees who are serving me so nicely, who are completely attached to me in the core of their heart, just like that husband, I come under full control of these devotees. So once again, he said, Paradhino, I have no freedom. I have no control. They are controlling me. I'm not controlling them. And then he adds further. So somebody wants to go? The last one?
Shall I try, Prabhuji?
Please, Prabhuji, go ahead.
Sadhavo Hirdaya Mahayen Sadhu Nam Hirdayam Tu Aham Mad Anyatate Na Jananti Naham Tebhyo Manag Api.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. This verse sometimes brings tears in my eyes. Just look at the humility the Lord is showing and the importance is attaching to his devotees, how important his devotees are to the Lord. He says, the pure devotees are always in the core of my heart. And I am always in the heart of my pure devotees. So there's nothing else in my heart, there's nothing else in their heart. And he says, my devotees don't know anything else but me. Like they don't know anything but me, and I don't know anyone else except them. Can you imagine that? The Lord is saying, I don't know anybody but my devotees. My devotees don't know anybody but me. What a wonderful relationship. And we talk about humility. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead saying, I don't know anything else. I don't know anyone else. I have no freedom. I'm completely controlled by my pure devotees. They can do anything they want. That's why Dasa Khan, a very famous Indian poet, says, Tahi ahir ki chhori ya chachiya bhar chaach par naach nachao. The Supreme Personality of God, who controls everything, who owns everything, who is feared by everyone, by whose order the time flows, the sun rises, the moon rises, wind blows. That Supreme Personality of God is ordered by these cowherd girls who have nothing material to dance for one small bowl full of skim milk. And he's told he cannot stop dancing until they tell him to stop. That's the control of a pure devotee. And Lord Vishnu here is explaining the same thing. How much is controlled by his devotees. So he's saying, therefore, how can I ever have any kind of enthusiasm to go against the wishes of my devotees? Or how can I help anyone who has offended my devotee? And the Lord was very frank with Durvasa Muni. He says, if you want to be excused from this offense, you submit to the Vaishnava whom you have offended. There's no other way to be excused. And he said, my dear Durvasa, go back to Maharaj Ambarish. And immediately, don't waste any time. He said that. He said, don't waste any time. Go immediately and beg his pardon. Go fall at his lotus feet. Very strict, very stern. But what a wonderful message for all of us to remember for the rest of our life. What the Lord wants, what the Lord loves, and how to control the Lord. Not that we want to control the Lord, but in terms of the relationship. So Durvasa Muni immediately, he got the message. I mean, smart person. He immediately went to Maharaj Ambarish, fell at his lotus feet. But Maharaj Ambarish was so humble and meek, he felt very embarrassed that a personality like Durvasa Muni is offering his obeisances and trying to touch his lotus feet. He felt shy, he felt embarrassed and ashamed, and he started to offer prayers to Sudarshan Chakra to please save Durvasa. And some very wonderful prayers that are explained in Srimad-Bhagavatam, but summary was that Ambarish Maharaj said to Sudarshan Chakra that you are actually the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By that glance, the Lord creates the entire material world. And therefore, you're the origin of creation, and you're very, very actually most dear to the Lord. You're the killer of the prowess of all other weapons. You're the killer of darkness. And you are the one who manifests the prowess of devotional service. And you are the killer of all irreligious activities. Without your mercy, the universe cannot be maintained. And that's why the Lord employs you as his weapon. So when Sudarshan Chakra heard this prayer of Ambarish Maharaj, he became very merciful and not only did not kill Durvasa Muni, but also withdrew the fire, that heat that was emanating on Durvasa Muni. So on this was a big lesson for Durvasa Muni. He learned his lesson that he should never consider a Vaishnava an ordinary person. There's a refrain that says, Vaishnava Jati Buddhi. We should never ask what is the caste of a Vaishnava, because they are beyond the caste system. They're beyond Varnashram. So even though in the mundane sense, look at from Varnashram perspective, King Ambarish was a Kshatriya and Durvasa Muni is a Brahmin. So therefore, Kshatriyas are lower than Brahmins. So Durvasa Muni is superior, and Durvasa Muni wanted to exercise his Brahminical power against the Kshatriya king Ambarish. But he learned his lesson. And the lesson was, let's stop the mischievous idea of neglecting or insulting a Vaishnava. So then everything was quieted down. Maharaj Ambarish offered very sumptuous prasadam to Durvasa Muni, who honored the prasadam, and then asked the king to also have some prasadam. Oh, I forgot to mention, King Ambarish, Durvasa Muni fled for his life, ran for his life for 1 year. For that 1 year, somebody who had been fasting for a year already, had not had any water for 3 days and 3 nights. He stood there with hands folded, for that 1 year until Durvasa Muni came back. That's some devotee. Anyway, the Durvasa Muni insisted that the king also honored Prasadam, which he did. And then Durvasa Muni blessed him and left. And Ambarish Maharaj, a few years later, divided his property among his children and went to a place called Manas Sarovar, to further execute his devotional service before leaving his body. So I'm going to stop here and see if any questions. We're almost at the end of the time anyway. Any questions or comments or corrections or
Correction, Prabhuji? No corrections.
Thank you, bro.
That's the wrong word to be spoken.
Thank you.
Prabhuji,
Haji.
this story took place during which yuga, Prabhu?
This is Satya.
Satyuga. Okay. So Durvasa Muni is also in Dwapar Yuga too.
Oh, yeah. So these people have very long life. Jambuan, Durvasa Muni, Vasishtha Muni,
Muni, Vishwamitra.
Vishwamitra, very, very long life. They go for ages. Right?
See, I have a question.
Ha, bro, go ahead.
I don't know if I should be asking this or not.
Oh, no, go ahead.
But just out of curiosity, I'm just wanting to understand. Like we have Narsingpalli till there. We still have, Ganga, Jamuna, and all the Teethsthal are there. Where is that lake of youth where Chavan Muni had taken the bath?
Why are you looking for a place for me? Because you don't need to go there.
No. This is the most required for everyone, I guess.
So Prabhu, is not just the lake, it's also the mantras that are chanted with that. That's why Chavan Muni was probably bathing in that lake for many, many times. But with Ashwini Kumaras, and they applied whatever paste, ointment, whatever, and they chanted their magical mantras that turned him into, otherwise I would look for that lake already. But
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yes, Draupadi Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Are there sages still living in the Himalayas? And are people in contact? Like, do you know who is still alive and in the Himalayas?
So there are lots of them still alive. Nar Narayan is still there in Badrinath. Vyasdev is supposed to be still there. Vyasdev is still there. Other sages like Vishwamitra, they're probably still there. There are many other sages who are still there whose names we do not know.
So do they live like millions of years then, or do they?
Millions,
Do they
literally hundreds of millions of years.
Hundreds of millions, yeah.
Yeah. And it's all through the power of yoga. So these people, like dynasty after dynasty, yuga after yuga, they're there participating in different pastimes. Agastya Muni, Kashyap Muni, they have very, very long life. They're not alive yet because they keep coming back as sometimes Dashrath, sometimes as somebody else, but they participate in different pastimes.
Amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's right. It's beyond our conception.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, that's what's called inconceivable.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking. Anyone else? Okay, then we finished right on time today. And thank you very much. So again, a reminder, no class next week. Just keep sending your blessings and we'll meet the week after.
Prabhuji, I have one question.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Yeah.
But not connected to this.
Okay.
You were talking about Suryavanshi, so it came. For Ramachandra, we say Ramachandra, and then he's also called, he's from Suryavanshi, he's Suryavanshi, right? So how come Ramachandra, Chandra means moon, and then he's from Sun Dynasty? Like what, why do we call him Chandra then?
Yeah, but that Chandra doesn't refer to moon dynasty.
Okay.
Chandra basically means somebody who's very beautiful. He was given the name Chandra.
Okay.
So his name is Ramchandra, not Chanda.
No, not Chandra.
Right?
Chandra.
Ramchandra. which is fine. It still means moon, but it just means that beautiful as a moon. And Ram means someone who enjoys. So a personality who is beautiful as a moon, enjoy. But although we know that Lord Ram really did not enjoy in the traditional sense of the word, but yeah, that's the name he was given.
Prabhuji, is it just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was called Chandrodaya, the effulgence of the Chand, the effulgence of the moon?
Well, so Chandrodaya does mean the rising of the moon.
Moon.
But I don't know if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was called Chandrodaya or the place was called Chandrodaya. So
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. Anybody knows?
So
Hare Krishna,
Mahaprabhu,
Prabhu.
I'm sorry? Sonam, you were saying?
no, I was just adding that Mahaprabhu is called Gaura Chand
Yes, of
because
course.
he was born in the
Full
full
moon.
moon night.
Yeah, but again, the
So
idea
that,
is beautiful as a moon.
right, but when we call Krishna Chandra, so in Krishna's case, as you correctly said for Lord Ramchandra, Chandra is somebody who's extremely beautiful.
Yeah, yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mansi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Prabhuji. I remember reading somewhere that Lord Rama was born in the afternoon.
Yes,
So
moon time, yes.
that day, sun was not ready to set because uh, Lord Rama was very beautiful and he was not just ready to set. And moon wanted to rise. So he requested Lord Ram that sun is not ready to set. So what should I do? I also want to see you. I think at that time he said that I am keeping you. I'm like, I'm connecting you with me. I don't remember the full story, but I have heard that is the reason that Chandra was adapted with his name. Is
Oh,
it
okay.
true?
I don't know. This is the first time I'm hearing it, but great story. Kind of allows you to
Okay.
connect it. Yeah. So it's totally possible. Totally
Okay.
possible. But no, I had not heard that.
Okay.
But thank you for sharing. That's very nice.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Hare Krishna. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Kalpataru Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much
Thank you,
for the
Prabhuji. Thank you.
class.
Thank
Very
you.
nice class. Very nice.
And all the best. Congratulations again,
Thank you for
Prabhu.
that. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Pradeep. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your wishes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.